Let your heart beat. Patrick, first of all, thank you so much, Patrick, for making fun of my song choices and my ability to sing. Folks, I'm a really great real estate investor. I'm an awesome businessman, but I am not a great singer. And Patrick, unfortunately, has seen that firsthand, right, Patrick?
Yes, I concur. It is actually quite sad.
So listen, Brian Jesslin, welcome to the first ever time that we have a Missing Millions guest on this segment. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So Patrick, the course of the topic of conversation here this morning, it's morning for all of us is how do people miss millions by staying in their comfort zone? And specifically right now, we're talking to BC members and Alberta members because there's an upcoming ACRE in Toronto. And, we're a big country, Patrick, my gosh, to take a flight all across this country and spend hours in this tube that floats in the air would just be very challenging for a lot of people, I imagine.
That's true. It's interesting that REIN members know that, we're often on the stage, and when there's an ACRE event coming, I'm speaking to the audience often of saying, listen, there's an ACRE in this other city, and I'm going to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and go to that other city. Number one, the ACRE events for REIN members are free. It's included in your all access kind of pass through your membership. But ultimately, I don't know that some people actually believe us. They don't believe us that it's a good idea to do that. And so, Brian and Jesslyn are a couple of REIN members, longtime REIN members, successful real estate investors, who in fact actually did that. They took our advice, they took our coaching, and they went to Vancouver ACRE. And tell us a little bit about what happened for you guys. That I actually haven't heard the story, so I have no idea what you're about to say. But tell us a little bit about what happened when you went to the ACRE event, Brian and Jesslyn.
So we went to the one in Vancouver. We actually go to all of them, to be quite fair. We go to the one in Calgary and Toronto as well. But the one we went to in Vancouver, our process, what we do is we split up and we'll sit at different tables and try to meet as many people as possible. And we met this lovely couple who are in Victoria, who were looking to invest. And as many know, it's really expensive in Victoria compared to us here in the Edmonton area. And so we just kind of had a casual conversation on what we do and how we do it. And from there, we grew the relationship, and they flew into Edmonton and viewed a bunch of our properties, met some of our tenants, and then we sat down and discussed the different possibilities and opportunities, and they're going to do a joint venture with us.
Fantastic.
That is so cool.
I want to actually, as we go through it, Patrick, I want to make this very impactful for the people that are gracing us with their presence and listening. So one of the things I caught there was, did you see how intentional they were about it? I mean, they sit at different tables. They're talking to as many people as possible. They're not there for a good time. I mean, I'm sure that happens too.
Of course it is, yeah.
But they're there for business. They're there to serve an objective. They go into it with an objective, which is we're gonna do this. We're gonna find a JV partner or whatever the objective is. Very intentional, right, guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very intentional.
Yeah, that's
so
very interesting.
So when we talk about missing millions in the context of missing millions, is that if you're questioning why you should stretch out of the city, if you're questioning yourself and what you're going to do, if you go to an ACRE event, what am I going to do? Just show up and sit around? No, you're actually going to stretch yourself. You're going to shake hands. You're going to have conversations with people. And especially going into Ontario, to Brian Jesslyn's point, in Victoria, real estate's expensive. They found somebody who's looking at Edmonton and imagine what you can buy in Edmonton for $300,000 or $400,000 versus what you're buying in Victoria for $300,000 or $400,000. The numbers speak for themselves. Yeah. And I'm also encouraged by the fact that your investor, and that's pretty impressive, that investor was sophisticated enough that they got in an airplane and came to Edmonton to meet with you and look at properties. Was that at your request? Was that at your suggestion, I'm assuming?
It was their suggestion, actually, and we were really happy when they did that. It was great to show them around. It gave them a really tangible aspect on what we do here and how we do it.
Wonderful. So keep going, Patrick.
I guess the question I had for you is that you said you've been to ACREs in the past. So I'm assuming you went to this one again because you've had some degree of success in the past at other ACREs, or what was your experience at other ACREs?
We haven't had joint ventures from other ACREs, but we could see the traction building when we went to the other ACREs. We could see the interest in the people that we talked to. The joint venture that we're particularly talking about, actually, we met at the previous Vancouver ACRE. So we've been building that relationship for an entire year. And then when we saw them again and we met them again, continued the conversation in person, that's when the everything kind of glued together and came together at that point.
So sorry, just let me just be specific about this. You're saying, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that if you wouldn't have went back the second time, this deal wouldn't have happened.
Potentially, yeah.
Like
potentially.
most likely, right? Most likely.
Yeah.
So what was it worth that? Was it worth the price of the airfare?
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think, do you think, Patrick, that's what stops people? I mean, you and I are like, we're on the road all the time. It's, it's different for us because we're just out there all the time. But what stops the average investor from going to an ACRE out of province? Is it the cost of the ticket, you think, Patrick? Like, what do they not understand the ROI? Like, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible here.
Well, I think that's a fair question, but I don't know that I have the answer to that. I think the story people tell themselves is that it's too expensive. I have to buy airfare, I have to get a hotel. I think what's underlying that is that's the mental excuse, because Brian and Jesselyn are really they're accomplished in what they do. They're strong as a couple. They're focused as a couple. So they're giving each other confidence to go and show up. They're intentional. And they're not afraid to show up and shake some hands and have the conversation. That takes confidence. I think what maybe people gets in some investors' way is the cost. Is it worth it? And then, but underlying is, do I really have the confidence to pull this off? Do I trust myself to actually show up and do what I need to do to open up those conversations? And so they go, and I think there's a little bit of fear behind it. I don't think it's as much cost as the fear of pulling it off. And maybe Brian and Jesselyn, you're quite accomplished in your real estate investing. You've met a lot of REIN members. You've met a lot of other investors. Do you have a view of it based on what you've learned along the way?
Yeah, like it's a refinement process for sure. The first few ACREs that we went to at Toronto and the first Vancouver, we just kind of dived in and sort of listened to people and felt out what worked. It definitely wasn't as polished as going to this last Vancouver ACRE. You gotta get a few under your belt, get some practice in there, and make sure you got your game plan down, because it takes time.
I've got a quick question for you. Is there a little bit of, in the missing millions segment, we're trying to encourage people to take a look at where you're missing millions. This deal will translate quite potentially into millions of dollars for you in a long-term kind of way. Now, when
Patrick,
you're talking,
just to qualify, Patrick, just so we're clear, for both Brian and Jesselyn and the JV partner, it's going to translate into millions of dollars over the
100%. Yeah, that's a great catch. So Brian and Jesselyn, there's another part of this. If we're going to give some guidance to somebody who's listening to this, when you're in Vancouver or you're in Ontario, I mean, you're talking about Edmonton. Oh my gosh, the headlines, they're like, the world's crashing in Alberta. There's no deals. There's like, well, real estate will never increase and rents are going down and people are moving away. Like, how do you deal with that particular conversation? Or is it why are investors, so interested in actually bringing their capital into Alberta?
Well, for us, we bring actual facts. So we bring our performance from our own properties, and we've replicated that model a number of times already. So we know we can do it again, and we just show those exact numbers and say, hey, look, this is what our properties have done over the last few years, even though there's all these headlines going on, and that really kind of sells itself, because you're in those headlines, still being successful, still making money, and you have a model to do it again.
How important is in those conversations has the research that REIN provides its members? Has that been a benefit to you? And once again, this isn't pre-scripted, so feel free to answer where it is. But how has the research supported you when you're talking to your investors outside the province?
For us, the research and like the what's behind the curtain, those kind of things, that just kind of cuts through all the stuff that's out in the media. And so even though that your headlines are showing a particular thing, you know that Edmonton is in recovery and Edmonton is going to come back, and that in 4 or 5 years you're going to be making a lot of money off those investments that you got today. So that's the main area that it helps us. It keeps us focused, doesn't allow us to sort of flake out and not buy a property just because the headlines are saying one thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, Patrick, Patrick and I did a Money Magic webinar yesterday where we talked about people interested in raising capital. We're having an event. We have a whole new program coming out called Money Magic. And this is where we're talking about with regards to the research. Like, there's no guessing. We're not speculating here. We're not guessing to see what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. We got the research to prove it. You come to the event, ACRE, armed with that research, and you're dealing with facts here. You're dealing with facts and figures, which is here's where it is, here's where it's heading, and here's my performance. So how can someone not be interested in that?
So you've been REIN members for some time now, and I know you were investors before. So give me some insights in the context of missing millions. What changed for you, because you were investors before you came into REIN? What was a kind of a big shift for you coming into REIN as real estate investors? What happened when you started coming into REIN and actually following some of the guidance?
My mindset mostly. Being in that room of investors was fantastic. It was a real push on what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. We bought 2 houses in the first 6 months that we joined REIN. And previous to that, we were maybe buying like 1 condo per every year or 2.
Years,
yeah. So and like condos that didn't match the REIN formula as well. So now we have really high performing suited properties with 2 and 3 bedrooms in each suite. And the numbers are not even comparable. Just in that first 6 months of joining REIN, we transformed almost our entire portfolio and really got things going.
So that goes back to, JG and I often talk about environment, culture, community, and we always go back to it. And I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that, I don't want to say obviously, but assuming that you had some of those tactics and strategies when you came into that. Was that environment, is putting yourself in that environment a big deal for you guys as well? Did you notice that shift? What was it? Can you identify what that shift was aside from mindset, like-minded individuals? I guess what's the question I'm trying to get to? What was the shift for you when you walked in and started coming into the room on a regular basis? Was it a confidence thing as well, confidence boost?
Yeah, absolutely. It opened up doors to see what other possibilities were out there, because there's people in the room who've done it, and we're able to pick their brains and see how they did it. And it took some fear away as well, right? Of like, okay, where are we going to get the money, or what does this look like long term? Or there was always someone there to help us with questions we had.
That's great.
And I think I think that's the difference right there, Patrick. We talk about ethos at REIN a lot, and you Patrick have been speaking a lot to this, but ethos, the E in ethos is energy, and the way we measure energy is not what we get from energy, but what we provide as energy. And you just said the magic word right there, which is when you were in the community of REIN, you had questions and people were willing to help. People were willing to answer. There's other groups out there. There's a ton of meetup groups. There's all these other things out there that are options, but typically the people that go to those are looking to get something. They're looking to take energy from the room, not give energy to the room. That's a big difference with REIN, and that's what makes success. Success breeds success. And And ultimately, you guys have been following the system and really killing it. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Brian, Jesselyn, appreciate you coming on and kind of.
Patrick, before we stop here, I gotta ask this question though, because this is the Missing Million segment. So I want to know from Brian and Jesselyn a story real quick about a time where you didn't take action and you may have missed millions.
Good.
You may have left Joe on the table. Well, what comes to mind? Just gut check.
Oh, where are we missing something? You got anything?
Excuse me.
You know what? I could actually probably relate it back to REIN because I knew about REIN for years prior to signing Brian up. And
guys, this is 100% unscripted. They had no idea I was gonna ask this question. It's so great.
Right, and to think about it, I mean, obviously there's no regrets, but to think if we had joined up when I first heard about it, we would have been like 3, 4, 5 years ahead of where we are now.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Okay, well, that's only a few million. Let's see, you can put a number on it or not. That'll just depress you on a Friday.
Yeah.
That's right.
It helps the relationships too. That funny little story, when she signed me up, she would notice that about after the 3-week mark, after going to a REIN event, like, you know, a week or so before the next REIN event, I was getting really grumpy. And she's like, I got to find some more events for you to go to because like you're getting miserable, like right a few weeks after REIN.
Can we go? This is off. Can I go on a quick tangent or we?
Sure.
Why not?
Really quick tangent because, you know, you guys are, you know, I guess, you know, the proverbial power couple. I mean, you guys do some great stuff together. You work well together. And, you know, if you're giving somebody guidance, because it's interesting, how many people, I can't even tell you how many members of their significant others have actually signed them up as REIN members or signed up as REIN members and then gone. So, but for you, how, you know, what would you give for guidance in terms of somebody somebody who wants to get their significant other involved and how important is that? Like how kind of important do you see it being given your experience?
I find it extremely important. Like I was 100% in. I love real estate investing, and well, Brian knew what it could do. He wasn't as I guess driven in it. So once I signed him up, because I was hoping that it would give him more insight into exactly where it can take us, he met me. We met on the same path, and then we could just excel together.
Mm-hmm. So you're in the same conversations, you're talking the same language, and actually in this case you're kind of, you know, tag teaming and bird dogging. You're splitting up. You're going, okay, I'm going here, you go there. Let's you know, make it the dynamic duo. So it's a good point.
And we were actually, you're seeing this more and more, Brian, and everyone listening, that REIN is specifically trying to make it as easy as possible for husband and wife to get together on all the things REIN offers. If you look at Patrick, if you look at membership, we have the associate membership, which is just a little more expensive. For Money Magic, it's only a few $100s to bring your spouse. For Elite 52, it's just a few $100s to bring your spouse. Because I know, Patrick, you're a big fan of this. You know, having your spouse on the same page can totally accelerate your growth. And it's so important. And a lot of people miss that that part.
Yeah, for sure.
JG, I think we did a good job of shining a light on where you can make millions instead of missing them by taking some action, stretching out of your comfort zone a little bit, going to a city outside of your city, going with a plan, strong intentions, being part of the REIN community.
Brian and Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day, guys.